But if I were being selfish, I would say they got to play because if they don't play, then they're useless.
Let's pivot to the national team. Eddie Pope, listen, Tim Ream is still playing. He's our age. Do you feel like you could lace him up and still get out there when you see Tim Ream doing his thing, or what?
What do you mean he's our age?
I was going to say.
You're in your 50s, Jimmy. You don't stop. He's not your age.
That's really old, Charlie. That's old when you're in your 50s, bro.
I think, I mean, it's amazing how his age. What is he, 38 or something like that now? So, for him to still be playing is fantastic, and he's still doing a great job and providing that sort of balance and leadership, stability to the back line. So it's been enjoyable to watch him play.
Okay, wait, I'm jumping in here. Do you feel like defending is lost art? Because I feel the nuances and subtleties, it just feels like it's not the same as it used to be, Eddie Pope. And maybe I'm getting nostalgic and I'm wanting to see a game that at the level that you and I were playing at or seeing the game. I shouldn't put myself in the same category.
Yeah, because VAR has definitely messed up your game, a little bit.
I would have definitely benefited from some offside technology, offside line technology. But do you feel like overall, and maybe you've even seen it with Carolina Core as well, just like the nuances and subtleties of it could be collective, could be individual. What are your thoughts on defending being a lost art?
Well, it does seem like, us defenders from a little while ago are saying that quite a bit. I think one of the biggest things is that defenders are required to be better, so much better on the ball now because we're playing out of the back. Everything's out of the back. And I think teams, which makes sense, you have to spend so much time on teaching players that and on doing that. And so maybe some of that time has been taken away from, good old fashioned defending. But so it's a give and take a little bit, right? Because defenders are so much better on the ball and their passing, their, with the ball at their feet, their decision making, the speed of their decision making, which is what we try to teach as well. It's really difficult and it requires a lot of time for defenders to be able to do that. And so maybe there's a little bit of it lost. But I do think that the game has changed so much that if you can't do that nowadays, you're going to be defending quite a bit because you're going to be pumping goal kicks up the field and turning around and defending. So maybe there's a little bit of that to it.
Appreciate that.
Eddie, when I'm guessing you follow a national team like we do, and you're watching these games in the Gold Cup, you've seen what's gone on over the last, let's call it year or so. With all of that said, who are the center backs right now in this group that get you excited?
Well, I actually think defensively, I feel good about who we have. I do like Tim Ream because, and one of the reasons I do is because I think he is probably the best passer with the group. Now, maybe athletically, he's not there anymore because he's a little bit older. But I don't think he's lost too much of a step. But like Anthony Robinson, McKenzie, obviously Chris Richard has done well over the past several games. Scully, I mean, there's I think our defenders, we're in a good spot, to be fair. And I think we have a lot of athleticism back there. I think we have a lot of guys who are super smart on the ball when they're playing out. But like I said, I think Ream provides a little bit of a balance, and we'll see how he fits in with the rest of the group.
When we talk about Ream, I absolutely agree with you in terms of his passing ability. Chris Richards, I think, has made the most improvement over the course of maybe two or 3 years, especially this year. I think light speed jumped from playing so many matches at Crystal Palace. Yeah. But in terms of young center backs that you're seeing across the country, right? You're scouting, you're seeing a lot of players. Where do you think they have improved, and what would you like to see more of? And I think this kind of goes with Jimmy's saying, it's a lost art. Do you feel that center backs are just being developed in a different way because the game has changed, or what could they focus on?
Well, they've improved on the ball, and I think they're super comfortable under pressure. I feel like a lot more than I was. You automatically have to know how to deal with the press. Everybody's watching you, the goalkeeper turns and passes it to you, and people come flying at you, and you have to be able to deal with that. And so I think across the board, defenders have gotten a lot better at that, and they're a lot, again, calmer under pressure. On the flip side, I think that because the formations have changed a little bit, a lot of defenders aren't used to defending 1v1 for 90 minutes plus.
Hey, preach.
There's usually just one striker up there. One guy covers and the other guy has a little bit, one guy is marking and then there's some cover behind, and they're uncomfortable a lot of times just remaining 1v1 for an entire game. And if you have a system where there's 3 center backs now, when they're out wide, center backs, we don't really want to go out wide. We like to stay in the middle when we can. So I think, to me, one of the lost arts is just that good old-fashioned 1v1 defending. You've got a striker for the whole game. You don't want him to score, end of story, and everyone else does their thing. And I think that, again, is a result of the different types of formations that you see. You don't see a ton of 2 strikers up top. And when you do, you typically see defenders struggling with that formation.
Yeah, same thing. We need more attacking players who can run 1v1, because the same thing, it's the balance is off. You have a lot of, target strikers, and they sit there, they're back to goal, and they just lay off, and no one wants to run at you one-on-one.
Yeah, I mean, I just heard Eddie Pope be smoking a cigar if he was playing this day and age on the field. I got 2 guys, got to mark 1. This is too easy, man.
Hey, I tell my defenders, one of you could just pull up a chair and get a box of popcorn and watch the other one defend. So, yeah, for sure.
So there's always a lot of comparing and contrasting, especially from us U.S. men's national team alums. So we want to ask you this question, because we've had this debate on the show before. Do you think, or let me say it like this, how do you think the 2002 World Cup team would do against this current iteration of the men's national team? We'll even give it the 2022 World Cup team, because there's a different type of bite, I think, and intensity that 02 team had, that maybe now it's starting to kind of
/ experience.
And experience. yeah, obviously a lot older and had
grown,
been around.
Grown men versus
against men that were becoming grown men, maybe not completely there yet, but they had to play in those big games to get that grown men status. How do you think the 02 team would be against the 2022 team?
It's hard to say, right? I think
diplomat alert.
Somebody's a chief sporting officer. That's a great start to that.
I think the difference is that and maybe I'm speaking for myself, but I think we had a good mix. I think we had some MLS guys who had a lot of experience. We also had some young guys, right, by the name of like a Landon Donovan, DeMarcus Beasley, John O'Brien, who had been in a residency program, which, right, was a big difference back then. They played a lot of games together. They had great coaching, and like a John Ellinger. They had a great environment that we hadn't really seen before. Those kids were young. They were fearless. They remind me a little bit of Luna a little bit. And so I think that for myself, being mostly an MLS guy, right, I had to depend more on just grit, toughness, working hard, running hard, fighting, jumping, all of those things. And nowadays, look at, like you said, Chris Richards, who's coming from Crystal Palace, who won an FA Cup. They have so much more talent, so to speak, that maybe they don't have to rely on some of those other things. And it's just about getting that balance right, because as a group, as they add all of those other elements into it, I think we'll be better as a country. So I think that's the biggest difference between those teams. And then you have to layer in like the Reynas, and obviously Tony was on that team, and Tony Santa, who was playing in Germany. And we had a good mixture of players across the board. So some really tough, gritty guys, super talented young guys, and then guys who had some European experience. And then after you have all of that, you need some things to go your way. And we were fortunate in that.
Man, I'll tell you what, I've described Eddie Pope to a lot of people for a long time. I used words like elegant, read the game. No, seriously, I'm telling you the truth, man. Not tough and gritty. Like, you had all of those things, but those aren't the first things that jumped off the page when I talk about your game. But it's good to hear you mention some of those things, because I think we still need them. When you look at this team, we're obviously okay. We're having a good couple of weeks here in the Gold Cup so far with 3 wins, but there were 4 losses after that. Like, where's your meter as far as, do I worry about this team? Do I like the direction they're going? Like, where are you on that meter?
I'm not worried yet. I'd say that, look, obviously the big debate, right, was whether or not people, players should have come back and things like that. I think that if you were able to rewind the clock a year ago and ask the core group, hey, should we, or does it make sense for us to get as many games as we possibly can together before a World Cup? Oh, and there's a new coach. Should we get as many training sessions as we possibly can with him and games with him? Everyone would have raised their hand and said yes. And at the end of the day, that's probably the real answer, right? Whether people come back or they don't come back, that's probably the real answer. And then you have fewer games, obviously, because we're the host kind of out of the gate a little bit here. So they know their team. So I think we have to give them some grace in that. They know the group, they know what they're capable of. The only thing I would add to that is when you don't show up right, you give other people opportunity. So you have Tillman, who's now started to blossom a little bit. And so as an example, and you never know where you might end up when it's time to make the final selection here. So I think that it's good in that some players that could maybe really add to the group got some minutes. And I think that that's a positive thing. And to play devil's advocate a little bit, maybe some guys who, a large group of guys who maybe wanted a rest or needed a rest, does that help? And that some of the other players is that we all say these players get run into the ground internationally. Did we end up with fresher legs at the end of it all? So it remains to be seen.
So, Eddie, we're heading into obviously a critical year for a lot of these guys who maybe some club situations are not as strong as some of the others and are looking to make moves. You're a sporting director now. What would be more important for you if you were, let's say, Matt Crocker, Gucci Nyewu, Mauricio Pochettino, and you got guys who could make these moves to bigger clubs, playing, more competitive training matches. I don't know necessarily you're going to be starting 11 versus staying put, and maybe it's MLS, maybe it's a smaller club in Europe or second division. Would you rather them stay where they are to play, or would you rather them take that chance to play with bigger names, bigger competitions, but maybe not necessarily get the 90 minutes every week?
Well, if I were being selfish, I would say they got to play. Because if they don't play, then they're useless, right? There's no way they're going to be able to jump into a World Cup and they haven't played a full season or half a season, rather, right? It's too hard for them. They won't be in shape. Their touch will be off. They'll be spending, the first two games trying to get back on track again. And that would be if I were being selfish, right? Now,
right.
As we all love the game, we would say what's best for them individually. It's probably to move somewhere bigger where they are around big names, big club, Champions League, and all those things. We know that that's probably good for their individual careers
and for salary.
Right? Of course, right? It's your career can only be so long, but for someone to go to a big club, it's the World Cup's coming up, and they're only going to play 4 to 5 games between now and the World Cup. Is going to be really, really difficult for that player to be able to just flip that switch and be sharp, because he's going to be playing against players who've been on the field for 90 minutes throughout that first half of the season. So, the latter half of the season. So I just feel like for some guys, it's a tough decision for them, but they got to make a decision as to whether or not they want to be on that starting 11 when that first whistle blows.
I know you're sad. We've come to the end of the video. But if you want more average to good content from your favorite former U.S. men's national team players, this is the channel to make it happen. Go look at our other videos. Go look at our playlists. And if you want more of the content, the best way to make that happen is to hit like, hit subscribe, and then turn on all of your notifications so that you do not miss anything that we drop or when we go live or whatever it may be. We appreciate you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.